Well, hello and welcome to Wisdom on Wednesdays. And we're going to be talking today just in general about what this video blog is about. Christi and I have been thinking on this theme for so long, haven't we, Christi?
Yes.
We have really been talking about how and thinking and praying through how we can raise up unshakable kids in this shaking world. And boy, are we ever shaking today. So we started to think back in March as this was happening, is that how can we connect and support parents in all of our university model schools across this nation, not just at Veritas Academy, where both Christi and I work, but simply connecting all of our schools together on this mission, because we have such an awesome opportunity at such a time as this to kind of feel a much needed educational option in our country. And I love the fact that in university model schools, the parent role of influence and authority is validated. So I just wanted to open up with this big idea that we really do want to see our kids and our families more than just survive. We really want to see them thrive in extraordinary ways in these times. And we want our kids to find that they can, in the face of overwhelming adversity and even difficulties, that they can confidently live and flourish and even enjoy life and the challenges that this time brings. So our hope through this video blog is to help our parents feel purposeful and empowered, and that while we all know that being a part of a university model school isn't always easy, it's also very transformative and really rewarding. For me, as a grandparent of 11 kids in my at Veritas Academy, I find my role on the days that I'm home with groups of them to be really special. Now, it's not easy. This week, one of my children and her husband, my youngest daughter Elise, and her husband were out of town at a marriage seminar. And so therefore kids were home, and while they had someone helping at their home, I had 8 kids yesterday in my house for the school day. And I don't normally do that many, but these kids ranged in grades from kindergarten through 7th grade. And so it was quite the taxing day. Plus this week, one of my grandchildren, when their parents were out of town, broke her tooth. Another one got poison ivy. It's been a week of challenges, and yet I have to laugh because that's kind of what life is. And in this model, we face all sorts of challenges as we try to educate our kids. Don't we, Christi?
We do. I had the same thing, a similar thing happen on Monday, Ellen. No matter how well we prepare, things are always coming to knock us off track. I was supposed to give a talk in chapel on Monday morning about these same themes that you and I are going to be talking about. And like you mentioned, the two of us have been praying and really asking God, what do you want us to talk about to our families and in these UMSI schools this year? And both you and I separately and independently heard God say that he wants us to talk about raising unshakable kids, and he wants to bring our families back and our students back to having a very high and lofty view of him.
Yes.
And so we heard that so clearly in June. It doesn't happen very often to me. I wish it did more. I wish he talked that clearly more. But ever since June, we've been working on how exactly we do that. And so the first chance I had to do that for our students was for an SR, so our high school talk. And I worked a lot on that talk, worked for hours, and then got up and started trying to deliver the talk, which was given outside. And we had the speaker system that we were using wasn't working, and it was windy, and the kids couldn't hear me, and my papers were blowing away, and all kinds of things. And I just thought, Lord, I thought you'd told us to tell these kids this, and now they're not even being able to really hear this. And so just going back to, I'm picking up on the phrase you use, that it doesn't mean it's wrong when things get hard. Often it is hard. It doesn't mean that the long view or the vision is wrong if it gets really hard in the trenches.
Yes, and sometimes it does, but we just dig in there and keep going because we have the Lord behind us and under us and before us. And so that's pretty exciting. So one of the things that we really want our kids to see is that we are not created to just trust in ourselves. And oh my goodness, has that been my journey. Through these video blogs, Christi and I will be sharing parts of our stories. This is a conversational video blog. But for today, we want to paint the big picture that, you know, in Jeremiah, if you read Jeremiah on your own and you go to Jeremiah 17, it talks about cursed is the man whose strength is in his flesh, that he would be like a shrub in the desert. But blessed is the man whose strength is in the Lord, that he will be like a tree planted by streams of water. We want to make sure we are raising up kids who don't wind up feeling like shrubs in the desert. And if you're like me, there's times in my life I have been there because I've relied simply on myself and had on my own strength and have found out that I really am not enough, that we weren't even created to be enough on our own. So we want to take biblical truth and promises and make them practical in our daily lives as parents and grandparents and teach those to our kids.
This is what you used to do for us, Ellen, back when you first started having our family ministries groups meet. It was always amazing to me that you could do two things at the same time, which is you would give us practical tips every day. We would come, well, not every day, but usually once or twice a week, we would meet with you and we could bring any question that we needed answers to. And they would fall into categories and themes about how do we execute certain things on home days? How do we, you know, there are certain parenting problems that we would have, and we're going to address a lot of those during the course of the year. But you would always use the opportunity to bring us back to sort of a big vision and a narrative about how to use those. Yes, here are some good practical tips, but also don't ever forget the vision and don't ever forget that this is a long journey. You are on a marathon, not a sprint. And I think back on just those little steps that we took now have gotten us so far down the road. And I can speak to that as a mom who's got a junior in college, and I'm now reaping the benefits of, you know, some practical tips that I was given by you years ago and implemented, but also at the same time was able to hold on to a vision that I kept feeling like we were sort of in trench warfare, like in World War I, where you know, we'd fight from the trenches, but then every once in a while lift our eyes up to see, oh yes, there's going to be an end to this and we're fighting for something worthwhile.
And we are fighting for something worthwhile. I think about a popular politician who has said we're fighting for the soul of our country, and I think we're fighting for the souls of our children right now. And Christi, you bring up such a neat point in that we want to be visionary and yet practical, and that's kind of two conversations we'll be having on this blog: how to keep our eyes on eternal aims and yet live out our days, practically speaking, one day at a time, as we have these big to-do lists and everything we're doing. But we really do want to be able to figure out how on a daily basis we can help our kids know who God is in his majesty, and out of his knowledge and who he is, who they are, and then how they can walk out as image bearers in this world. It is our aim and desire, and that is both. Christi, I've been at this school now for 16 years and got to watch your children grow up and got to watch so many children grow. And it's that ability to be able to keep the big picture thoughts, the visionary pieces in mind, and yet walk out life. And it is a kind of a balance, isn't it?
It is. And I think about some of the things we talked about this summer going on in the culture, and how would we teach our kids to respond to very serious cultural tensions, very serious racial tensions, some things like that. And I go back to some very basic things. If we ourselves can know the true things about who God is, and if we can teach these to our kids, and then we can know who he created us to be, as image bearers, as in his image, and who he created us, how he created us to truly treat each other, and then how we walk that out, then it seems like no matter what situation we send them out into the world, they have that foundation, they have that knowledge, and they have the security of having him with them, and that it really is true if he says, you can ask me for wisdom because I will give you wisdom. And you are created to be just, and you are created to be merciful because I am just and merciful, and so I can help you figure those things out too. And so it almost relieved me of having to try and teach kids to give them an exact answer for every situation, and go back to just say, let me teach you more about the God who will have an answer for every situation.
You know, we don't have to be in the midst of all this, Christi, an anxious people, do we? It's almost a national, it's kind of a norm in our country that anxiety is a part of life. And yet God is calling us to a life where we don't want our kids to be more anxious. We want them to be resilient. We want them to be unshakable. We want them to be confident that God is sovereign, even in the midst of all this shaking. So that is really what we're wanting to do, is offer you through these videos practical tips that we've had to learn the hard way as we've worked with our own children and grandchildren in this model, tips that will hopefully encourage you and offer you as parents hope for not only your own lives, but for the lives of your children. And some of the topics that we're going to be talking about are just things that we all face, relationship and behavioral issues with our children as we attempt to teach them and we attempt to disciple their hearts, and how to manage home days as a working parent. More and more of our parents in this model of education are also working, many from home as they educate their children. And we have a working mom who has developed a great system coming to share her tips in a few weeks. We want to address the cultural lies our kids hear and tend to believe, and boy, are there many of them today. We want to address things like a performance-driven mindset and how that actually negates performance at times. Just how to manage life by the highest priorities. There's so many wonderful topics. We have some great guest speakers in mind, including a dietitian, pastors, and whatnot, to come and share tips on the topics in this theme of raising unshakable kids in a shaking world. So we do encourage you to subscribe to this channel and to join us. And you can send comments to us. You could actually post them on the YouTube channel or on the Facebook links. We'd love to hear topics that you'd like to have covered. And we'd just like this to be something that serves the needs of families in all of our schools.
I think we also, as of maybe yesterday or the day before, you could email at Family Ministries, isn't it? Family Ministries at Veritas Academy. We're real interested in feedback. So any way we can get your feedback and hear the topics that you want us to address and questions that you have, we'd love to gather that up from you.
And we will post these email links and what you need as we go along here. But for now, we're hoping that you've enjoyed this introduction to Wisdom on Wednesdays. We will be posting a video most Wednesday afternoons and really invite you to join in this conversation. And really, I think that's about it. We are really excited that we can connect our schools. One of the things that this pandemic has brought about for me is the ability and the understanding that we actually can continue to connect. It's fun for me to see Christi side by side with me, even though we're in different locations right now, and for everyone, wherever you are in whatever home, that we can all connect together. So thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you next week.
Bye.